So today we are going to have a tag team presentation, clickers in the classroom. And so we're going to have Dr. Winslow and Dr. Hoekman and Dr. Drabenstot. Did I get them right?
No.
Okay. So thank you guys for doing this today. We've even got a little experimentation lab set up over here, so we hope those of you watching online can see that. And just remind me when you switch from your slides to that, I'll take it off the screen share so they can see that. And we have a couple of prizes today. Again, the little trackers that we had last week. Again, you could put these on your dog or your laptop. Somebody said on their wife last time. You track your location through an app on your phone, so it's kind of neat. So, and then next week we're going to have Jody Bowie back, and he's going to be doing a presentation on Google. This is not your father's search engine, so that should be interesting. So without further ado, Dr. Winslow, do you want me to go ahead and put it on your slides for you?
That'd be great. I'm kind of curious to see who's online, since I know everybody here, but not necessarily online.
So far, it is Lisa Orth, and then Rhonda Thorson is supposed to be joining us very soon.
All right. So is Lisa in her office downstairs right now?
Probably. I don't know. Lisa, are you downstairs in your office?
No.
Oh, okay. Haha, no, he says.
Hello. All right, it's a pleasure to be here with you today, and thanks for coming on this beautiful day. It's be great to have this presentation outside. And technology probably would work outside, but really nice to be with you here today. I'd like to give you just some introductory materials before we take a look at the technology and use the clickers. There are some seriously inherent challenges in teaching, because we know that what we teach makes perfect sense to us, and we have put together the most robust and awesome presentation. It is crystal clear. But the real question concerns not just our teaching, but really what are they picking up, what are they learning. And so every time that I think I walk out of the classroom and my head swelled up because I've done a great job and really made a serious impact on my students, I remind myself of this story of where a fellow came into the office. He was a used car salesman. He came to the office and he told his manager, "I sold the car," but they didn't buy it. So I had to kind of tease out the meaning of that. I mean, we feel good like we're great car salesmen. We feel good about the work that we've done, but if they don't buy it in the end, then what good is our teaching, so to speak? So one of the challenges is to know how are they perceiving and how are they synthesizing the things that we're teaching. And so it's always a challenge for us to try to elicit, to pull that out of their minds while they're learning, not just waiting till a quiz or a test or some kind of reflection later on. So if you can do it like in real time, then you can be more responsive, whether it's in the same hour or the next day or after the weekend and so forth. So the real question behind all this is, what are the students picking up? So what we want to do, of course, is to solicit student feedback. What's going on in their brains? And of course, we pose questions, and then they respond to that. So we solicit their feedback. So here's a wonderful picture of what's going on. We might have, looks like if you see that fellow in the blue, that's a jock. He's the only one that probably doesn't get it, perhaps. Sorry, Jason, I don't mean to put down. He's still got a question, but everybody else is smiling and gets it, right? Everybody's totally engaged, and you have enough people that have their hands up. So I guess I just want to open this up to you. When you have tried to solicit student feedback through normal channels, asking them a question, and then maybe giving them a variety of responses, and then ask, okay, for this particular response, A, raise your hand. For this possible option, B, raise your hand. For this possible option, C, raise your hand. And sometimes the answer is not clear. I'm just kind of curious, what are some of your experiences with the students when you try to pose them a question in that kind of format? How do they respond to your questioning?
It's always the same ones.
Okay, it's always the same ones that feel a sense of confidence and maybe raise their hand right away. And what about the other students then that don't respond as quickly? Because I hear what you're saying is maybe you don't get a virtually 100% participation. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Especially if you have a classroom of 40 or 50. and some will kind of shrink in the back, and they all get out of it, perhaps, because there's so many there, it's hard to keep track of who's responded and who hasn't. David?
So this morning in class, we were talking about a paper from the literature we had read. It was a small class, 10 students. But even there, there were 5 or 6 of them that were really answering the questions, and there were 2 up front who were clearly paying attention, but never raising their hands. And I was a little conflicted. Do I call on them? I think I would have made them uncomfortable. I did not, you don't want to put them on the spot and make this kind of scene where they now feel like, I wish I hadn't come, or I felt like so bad about that, Because you don't want to put them in a position where they feel inadequate or underprepared somehow if it's just something that they're not comfortable saying, but you want to pull them into the conversation.
That's really a good point. We come in the costume, we exude all this confidence and things like that, but it's easy to forget that some students are embarrassed, not necessarily because of lack of preparation, but maybe they just really don't know. It's a difficult question, and they're very reticent to maybe show their, if you don't mind me calling ignorance. Ignorance is not a bad thing, it's just that they don't know the answer. So, for example, like in physics, this semester I have 24, and so oftentimes I'll set up some kind of demonstration, ask them for the outcome, give them some choices, and out of 24, probably only generally about 15 to 17 actually ever answer. Now, it might be a different, from that group, but generally the rest don't answer, and I can't kind of keep track of who's answering and who's not. And then, like on some of the first answers, who thinks this, people will raise their hands, and then other students are kind of watching. They're watching for the smart ones, right? Because they are going to change their minds based on, it doesn't count for a grade. They want to look intelligent and things like that. So that's, it's a good thing for us to try to solicit their feedback, but there's some challenges with it as well. The lack of full participation, people kind of changing their minds and hesitating to answer. And this is some of the power of using clickers, okay? So we're going to talk about clickers today, but I'm just wondering, what are some other ways perhaps that you've used, kind of try to draw their response from them? I've already talked about hands. How many think it's this answer? How many think it's that answer? A lot of times we pose options A, B, C, D. What are some other ways that you've tried to generate student feedback?
Poll everyone, or poll everywhere.
Yeah.
Poll everywhere,
poll
okay.
everywhere, yeah.
And we'll actually talk about that towards the end of the presentation today, but that's a good one. That's kind of an online format, or they can answer through their phone or text and so on. Okay, good. Any other ways that you've used it besides raising hands? Somebody mentioned about using fingers, a number of fingers. So, B would be 2 fingers. And actually, at that point, everybody can respond at once and hold up their fingers. You're kind of got to figure out who has how many fingers. It's kind of tough, though, isn't it? Especially if you've got a large class. You're certainly not going to count them. In your mind, you can't say 47.2% shows this. So there's going to be some challenges with that. One of the ways I used for quite some time earlier, before we had clicker technology, was these A, B, C, D cards. So some of you may have seen these before, but you can ask students actually to give their answers based on this. So let's go ahead and pass these all the way around. And everybody should have a black and white one and a colored one as well. So the first thing we'll do is we'll fold it like a hamburger, right? So you want to fold it like a hamburger, not a hot dog, okay, like a hamburger.
I don't understand what. Oh, this is for the hamburger.
Well, a hot dog is along the long way, and a hamburger is a short way.
All right.
I know, it's great.
It's been a while since she's been in kindergarten.
So you're gonna make 2 response cards. One's gonna be color, one's gonna be black and white. It just gives you a couple different options, and I think if you just Google A, B, C, D cards, you can do that. So once you have it like this, then you can fold it again, and now you have a 4-option response card. And if it's in color, it might help you very quickly gauge what the response is in the large classroom. So you have to give them time, because perhaps, the way I have it here, A and C show up, but if they're going to want to choose B, they've got to take a little bit of time here to refold it, and then you say, okay, I'd like to see your answers. Everybody at once holds up their answers, facing forward. They can't really check each other, because you're all facing forward, but you can see very quickly and kind of gauge. Most of the class chose B, about a third chose Or let's say a quarter chose A and a quarter chose B or something like that. Nobody chose C except for maybe one person. But this works pretty effectively. Very cheap, right? This one's 12 cents a piece, that one's 5 cents a piece, okay? And if students lose them, they can just download it from the Google site. It works pretty well. It's a little bit awkward. You know, it takes time to refold and things like that. And again, you really don't have that quantitative data. You have a little bit more of a sense of what's going on. But this is probably the lowest cost option you can find when it comes to getting student responses. Poll Everywhere is another good example that works pretty well. I don't know about you guys, but I try, Poll Anywhere makes use of technology through texting on your phone or using a laptop to actually, you know, choose a response. And as you well know in some of your classes, minimizing the availability of cell phones or laptops is sometimes advantageous. So that's the downside of that, but we'll talk about it a little bit later on. So our basic outline here is talk a little bit about logistics, various applications, and that's where the three of us will talk, and then some online variants, and then finally with some concluding remarks. So the first thing I'd like to do is actually pass out some clickers. You'll see down there at the very bottom, we engaged in a 120-day evaluation period where they sent us a really nice case of 30 of these, okay? And they also sent us the receiver because the clickers are actually the radio frequencies communicating with that little thumb drive or jump drive right in there. And they'll let us use it for 120 days, and all they have to do is ship them back. So I'll pass these around, get plenty of them. I think there's more coming around. Here you go, Mike. Thanks. So you have a few more options, which is then the ABCD cards. Does everybody have one? You can go all the way down to, you got 10 buttons there and so forth, all right? And they're just, every time you press a button, it communicates with that little radio receiver down there. That receiver is $149. That came in with the trial or evaluation period. And then you can get clickers from a number of places. So again, in the fall, we didn't pay anything. We got 3 sets of these. David tried it out, Scott tried it out, and I tried it out. And then at Christmas time, we returned 2 out of the 3 sets. I bought the other set. And so that we could just kind of use and distribute. And Dave and I are going to use it a little bit on the class that we're co-teaching. So we ended up spending, you know, well over $1,000 for that set that I just showed you right here. What Scott decided to do was we got him a receiver, and then he's asking students to buy the clickers. He's going to use it in all his classes. For many of his psych majors, they're going to use it every time they have a class with him. So if you buy them direct, like I did for David and me, they're about $30 a piece to buy them directly from the company, kind of in mass like that. Scott is sending his students to the bookstore, or they can get it from Amazon, so it's costing about $42. It's kind of a little bit of money, all right? It's, you know, the cost of one of our cheaper textbooks, perhaps. But they might use it in multiple classes. They can probably resell it to another student the following semester and so on. So they'll get some of their money back. The software all comes on that receiver right there, and that part is free. So why don't we try it out? Okay. So this is actually a question that was generated by Learning Technologies, the software itself. And so you can see here, it gives you a question. The poll is closed. It says that right up here in the upper right-hand side. The polling is closed. And then it's got some historical data here that says responses to. Now, the students are not able to see this, but because this is a single monitor situation, if I had a monitor off on my side or actually my laptop, what's being sent out to the projector, they would not see that along the top. But it's kind of advantageous. You can see it now. But the students will not see that strip along the top. So what I'm going to do, and this is, you know, as a grape is to a raisin, a plum is to, and let me go ahead and set it here. So I'll just reset the question, so to speak. The polling is open. This is green, and you guys can respond. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm going to wait till it gets up to around 9. And Lisa, I'm sorry. Lisa Orth, if you're there, I'm sorry you don't have a clicker in your hand. If Lisa were downstairs, we could run the clicker down there, and the radio frequencies might actually work. Okay.
Me too.
And I apologize. It's hard for me to see. If I had my laptop right here, I could easily see that number 9. So I've got 9 responses, and sometimes as I want to close it down to say 5, 4, or just 3, 2, 1, and people respond right at the last minute. So there it is. We've got immediately the answers that we were looking for, and then use this to kind of turn around and talk to students about why did they choose the things they chose and so forth. Does that make sense? So that's the simplest way of doing it. You can only choose once. You can't keep on trying, or we can allow you to keep on trying, but there's a lot of ways where you can actually control the response from the students, more than once or just once, and so forth. So why don't we go ahead and take a look under the hood, so to speak. So I'm going to get out of here, and I'll show you what, as soon as you put in the, I'm moving my mouse down there, but really what I'm trying to do is point to that receiver, that little jump drive that's in the computer. All right? The mouse won't go down that far, but what it does is it is like a jump drive. And on that jump drive, it gives you a couple options. It's got the software for a Mac, software for a PC. We go in here, it's just running an executable file. And I think that file is up and running right now, but let me see if I can find it. Probably. Am I messing things up by doing this, Misty?
No.
Okay. So
Fine.
Pardon?
It looks fine.
Okay. I think what I'll do here, it should show up, and let's see here. Now, it's actually saving your data if I want to. I'm not going to save it in this case, but if I wanted to, I could save it. Now, this is like the launch pad, so to speak. So you put in the software, you put in the jump drive, this pops up, and when you start this up, what happens is it starts PowerPoint for you. Here's the one we were working on, okay? And you notice the main thing is that you now have what they call an add-in in PowerPoint. And that's if you start PowerPoint first and then try to use Turning Point, it doesn't work. You have to start Turning Point first and then launch PowerPoint from within there. But what you can do here, let me come back down to where we were. We were right here. You can actually add new questions and so forth, and it gives you some options: true, false, numeric response, short answer, multiple choice, and so on. Liquor. And there's a variety of other things right here. I mean, you can import and so forth. One of the cool things is that you can actually load a list. Okay, maybe you've downloaded off of Moodle your class roster. So then you can actually make a connection between, let's see here. Let's go ahead and create a new list right here, and we'll just create it manually. So you can type in names if you want. But you notice that for everyone in your class, you can put in their last name or first name, and then there's a device ID. So I'd like you to take your clickers and look on the back-hand side, and you should see device ID underneath the barcode. So every one of your clickers has a unique device ID. So if students have purchased this, I assume that's what you're doing, Scott, yep. You've got their device ID connected to their name. Mm-hmm. And so you can choose to actually save that data and have a better understanding about the individual student, or there's choices to work anonymously as well. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just say that to the student: look, I'm not collecting the data, but I want you to answer this anonymously, particularly maybe some kind of questions you want to keep it anonymous. But you do have the power of collecting the data for each individual student. And that can help out like with doing attendance and so forth. So you don't ever have to actually take attendance. If they're there, they're clicking away. If they've forgotten their clicker too bad, they might as well not be there, I guess. So you can set that up, and actually, it's not like you're typing in a bunch of stuff. You can actually ask them to press their clicker, and then you type in their name. It's not like you just, yeah. It receives it, it puts in the ID, and then you just type in their name. Or you can do it all ahead of time.
Or you can do it sort of a roll call. There's an option where they can press a number, and it will automatically read their ID if you already have their names in.
It's pretty cool. I guess the point I'm trying to make, it's not an onerous thing at all to connect the specific clickers with a device. All right. Are you sure you want to discard? Yes. Okay. So you can set up your receiver. You can save your data. If you come in the following semester, you can open up a new class so that you still have the class from the semester before. There's tons of options in terms of looking at the data that you've collected, question by question, or for each individual student, how did they answer the question? So you can do it per student, or you can do it by class, or you can do it per question. So there's a lot of options there, which is pretty nice. And I think we're just kind of skimming the very top of the potentiality of some of this stuff. But we just use it to collect student information in various ways, whether it's anonymous and so forth. So basically it works as an add-on to PowerPoint. I just might pause for a second and ask you if you have any questions about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and see. Let's just go ahead and try to apply maybe some of this technology and see if we can leverage it in certain pedagogical ways. Here's the question now. Before you answer, I want to read this to you. You can see the polling's open, right? So don't answer quite yet. This is a typical physics question I might ask if we're talking about buoyancy. Let's say that a barge is filled with iron while it's in a canal lock. When the iron is dumped over the side of the barge and then down into the lock, what happens to the level of water in the canal lock? So I want you to think about that for a second. You don't see a barge in there, but you know what I'm talking about, right? It's completely full of iron. We're going to take the iron out and throw it into the water. And then what happens to the water level? You can see the water level here on the side. What's going to happen to the water level on the side when we throw that iron off the barge and into the water? Okay? So think about it just for a moment, and then I want you to answer individually. Answer individually. And you respond when you're ready. I'll give you maybe 30 seconds. In a class, maybe I give them a little bit more time, but for the sake of time today.
Can this be a music question?
All right, well, we'll wait for another response or so. Maybe 3, 2, 1. And then all I have to do then is hit the down button, and the responses are going to look like this, okay? That's kind of interesting. So usually as a teacher, then you might say, well, about 60%. I mean, they can see it. Most of you chose that the water level rises. That's quite interesting. And the other option was that the water level stayed about a quarter of you. Now, this is a pretty small class. But if you had 30 or 40 in your class, then I think you'd feel pretty good. I mean, 1 or 2 differences here can make a big difference there in the percentages. Interesting. So I guess we have a few people that think something other than A. What I'd like you to do now is just spend a little bit of time to explain your reasoning to each other in small groups. And I'd like you to answer it one more time after you've had a chance to discuss with your neighbor. Okay? So turn to somebody next to you and just say, hey, what did you answer and why? And I defend your answer. I think it's this. I think it's that.
It's designed to put on at a certain level as the ship comes in. So if you dump something in, I would say that level is still supposed to keep it at that level, no matter what speed is. And that will raise the water.
We already have a raise.
Out to the other side.
All right. Very good, because I'm actually going to re-poll in a minute.
Okay.
I'll re-poll you in a minute.
No, thanks, yeah.
More than I know.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about it, like, yeah, but you're right, you know.
Did students say that to you?
Yes.
Can you tell me?
That's the right answer.
Right.
Don't tell me why the right answer is the right answer. I just want it.
Oh, the polling's closed, so you basically are gonna be able to reset this and start again. Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
Yeah. And I'm not going to take a screenshot. You know, that initial response is interesting. If I want to, I might write it down or something like that. But I'm going to just reset it so that we'll see if the answers have changed at all.
That's
And you can set it up so it'll actually collect your previous response and the secondary response, so you can actually see how students
if
change.
students flip flop. Yeah.
All right, so some of you have been talking. Now, you know, it doesn't have to be this quick. You could actually ask people to walk around the room if you have that freedom and talk to 5 other people, you know, if you want to mix it up a little bit. So I'll go ahead and I will reset this, okay? Remembering that about 63% of you chose option A. So the polling's open, you can see that there. Again, the students wouldn't see this, you would just be telling them. So go ahead and respond fairly quickly. So we got 6 responses, maybe we'll get another 2 if we can, all right? Maybe 1 more. Very good. Okay, let's see where we ended up this time. Oh my goodness, wow, we went in some opposite directions. Okay, that is quite, that's not necessarily unusual, but
Everyone second guessed themselves and went for the other thing.
And so if we get it a third time, the middle red bar might be the highest, right? Yeah.
And it might have been different if we kept moving around. Then those who were confident of their answer had more of a chance to convince a bunch of people. Like, if we were both kind of not very confident, then maybe we changed our minds, maybe we didn't. But if we talked to a bunch of other people, and some of them were confident.
Yeah. Well, we went to a conference, the three of us went to a conference, one of those transformative learning conferences put on by UCO, and Eric Mazur, a physicist from Harvard, was there presenting clickers as a technology to engage student learning and so on. He used this particular example, and he made a claim that studies have shown that, especially for the large enough classroom, that the majority of the responses will move towards the correct answer. I don't know if you remember him in this particular.
If there were enough correct answers.
If there are enough correct answers, they will gravitate towards the correct answer, which was kind of interesting to me. I'm not sure that's the case this time.
I think he would make that argument in the context of a lecture where he feels like he's prepared, he's given them the information that they need to arrive at that answer. And so, I mean, I don't know, I felt like I was kind of working from scratch.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a good point. This is really, I'm coming in from out of the blue here, out of right or left field. And so actually the correct answer is, well, why don't we find out, okay? So if you notice right here, I've got a water tank here, and it's like my canal lock, okay? And the canal lock has got some water in it. We have a boat that has plenty of iron in it, and the boat's about to sink, right? I mean, it is filled to the gills, all right? So what I'm going to do, and I'm not sure if those online will be able to see this, but we'll try our best. I should have a blue marker.
It's right there. It's on the side.
Right here? Okay, thank you. And so what we'll do is we'll mark the side of the canal, and that's the water level right there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So what do I need to do? Take the middle out, and if you don't mind, I won't quite drop it onto the floor of this. Okay, this is a beautiful table. I don't want to get all wet. I'll go ahead and start pulling it out, all right? And, of course, I'm going to get a little bit on my hands, but that's probably okay. That's just a little bit of water there, right? Think about the size of this tank. Okay, there's no trickery here. Oh, he's holding the boat. No, I just don't want to keep it from capsizing, okay? I'm just going ahead and putting the mass down here at the bottom. Now the water is, or the boat is floating easily, of course. And what has happened to the water level? It's gone down. Oh my goodness! So I think nature has answered the question for us. Nature has answered the question for us. It's actually gone down.
Well, now don't we all feel silly?
Well, you should, because intuitively, a lot of people will say, well, the water level is going to go up because you're adding material to it, right?
Like an issue of displacement.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, inevitably,
I overthought it,
Yeah.
and I said, it's a lock, and it is set to be at a certain level.
Okay.
And so if I dump the water in, it's going to keep it at that level because that's where we set it to be.
You know, that's really interesting.
And pump in and out.
You're bringing some a priori knowledge I didn't even think about, and don't our students do that all the time? They've had certain experiences. I don't know if you've been in a canal lock before, maybe like you have, Michael, or have that knowledge, but sometimes you don't even think about what's going on.
That's how he convinced us.
And the other thing is, that boat is plastic. A
Yeah.
barge is metal.
True.
And so wouldn't it continue to displace water? Like, I don't think
Yeah.
it would be sitting on the top of the water like that.
Yeah, so I could do this like with, that's a great question. So I could do this like with like a bread pan or something like that. It's made out of metal, maybe not as heavy as a barge, but everything's kind of scaled down here and so forth. So now you probably want some, what I've done is I think I've engaged you. You want to know what's going on here. Well, that would take us, a little bit of time to talk about buoyancy and volume displacement, things like that. So what I would do here, just real quickly, let's say that we take a neutron star. A neutron star is incredibly dense. Take the size of our sun, reduce it down to about the size of Oklahoma City, and that's the density of a neutron star. Let's go ahead and reduce it down even further. I mean, it's something as massive as the sun, right? And let's get it down to about the size of a marble. Now, if I put that sun mass-like marble in here, of course this boat would sink, and it would drill a hole through the ground and everything like that. But just bear with me, okay? What it's going to do is it's going to weigh this thing down. I mean, it's very, very heavy marble. That's what I'm trying to say. And then when I take the marble out and put it down there, then you can probably see the water level is going to drop, right? And so that's using like an extreme example to help it make sense. It doesn't explain the physics in terms of body displacement, but by using another analogy, maybe clarifying why it's behaving, not exactly how, but as an analogy. So anyway, here's something that you can do like in the class. And I'm going to go ahead and skip a couple slides here for the sake of time. Is it all right if I go back to my...
Yeah, let me go ahead and share them again.
Okay. So like in physics, and I think probably in a lot of other disciplines, of course, you want to engage the students sometimes before you start a new topic. Maybe in athletic training, you describe a particularly gruesome injury or something like that. And now they're hooked, right? But a lot of times you might say, well, okay, so what would you do in this case? What would be your first response? What's your first reaction and things like that? And so you want to elicit from them what they think, and that's kind of what I've done with you folks as well. I'm going to skip these because my colleagues here need to get a chance to talk. And you know, you can use your clickers as a group. You guys did that as a group the second time around, okay? But what I just want to highlight here is like what I call the 5, or others call the 5E model of instruction, where you engage, you explore, you explain, you elaborate, you evaluate, and you can follow this cycle. It's called the 5E model of instruction. And we just did the engage stage. Now I've got the students' interest peaked, and then I can go on to the more formal teaching, or allow them to explore themselves, go on to explain, and then elaborate by maybe expanding the area to which I'm trying to apply these principles. Evaluate as a part of that, not real formal, summative evaluation, but right there in the classroom, and clickers can at least be used with 3 of those 5 stages. That's the point I'm trying to make. All right, but there's other uses of that in the classroom, so I'm going to turn it over to Scott, and Scott, I'll go ahead and we'll just start it out. You should be good to go. Thank you.
So for me, one of the really important parts of this is how do we engage in assessment and feedback? And, you know, assessment is a big part of what we do as educators at this point. Evaluation is a lot of what we want to do, but in the classroom, it helps as well. So one of the initial ways that I found it most useful to engage this is I was facing the problem that everyone's facing. How do you get students to read? So as a department, we've done a lot of reading quizzes. Those are problematic though, because if I get a 10-point quiz, it takes a good 15 minutes out of a class period to dive into the quiz, to have them complete the Scantrons, and that's not even considering if they have questions and go, okay, well now I need to know why that answer is the way it is. Well, I don't agree with that answer. Well, I think that answer should have been this. And now you've cooked and scrambled a huge part of one of your days of a week of lecture time with your reading quiz. This clicker system allows you then to quickly focus on maybe 4 or 5 important quiz questions that are reading quiz-oriented questions, but you don't have to dedicate the entire class period. One, so here's an example from statistics. Which of the following is not a feature of the normal curve? And so the students responded with their choices. In this case, I got the response scenario of 77% were saying A. Well, that's good, because A is the correct answer in this case. What that means is if I spend a whole bunch more of class time discussing this concept from the normal curve, then I've actually wasted my time from a utilitarian calculus. That's not to say those 23% don't need an explanation of that, but I probably don't need to spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes like I would discussing these concepts if I didn't know what was going on for the classroom. Take another example. We also can use clickers for getting quick student feedback on understanding. So one of the other pieces that's difficult is getting a sense of where the students are at. You know, one day you walk in and the students have read all of their material, they're very engaged. The next day you find out, give a stats example, that there was a nursing test that day, same day, and they didn't read because they were engaged in the material for another class. I have about a third or half of my students in nursing. So those days have little engagement. So one of the other things that I wanted to do and have been using clickers for is just get a quick pulse of the classroom and a sense of what they're doing. So I might ask them, do you understand this chapter? Or comment on, using a Likert type scale, I understand this chapter. What they will then be able to do, and I don't know if there it is. This is the example of what they gave. You can't read the text. Typically, the quality of this picture is not great, but it says strongly agree, agree, somewhat agree. And so on this one, I've got a good sense very quickly that most of the students are engaged with the material. They're ready to process some deeper concepts of the chapter. If most of them are falling on the strongly disagree, they haven't even admitted that they didn't read the chapter. They just don't understand it at this point. And so they're owning that we need to spend some time going through the basics of this chapter. This is a great distribution for stats.
Let me ask you a question about that, though, because I'm just thinking the
Yeah.
way the students think. So say you do this a couple of times and it's shown up that strongly disagree, and you go over the material, does that not set up then a pattern of, oh, well, I don't have to read the chapter because he's going to go over it if I say I don't understand it?
That's an interesting question. For me, my bias is that may be the case, but that means that they're not going to get the feedback on the more complex material, and so it's going to come out on the test anyway. We are spending time that is most fruitful in the classroom, and if they don't have the basics, we can't even tackle the more complex topics anyway.
That's true, yeah.
So yeah, it's something I've gone back and forth on.
Right.
And I'm like, well, they should have read it. Well, they should have. But that's why the reading quizzes also give an opportunity to wade into that.
Mm-hmm.
Only getting student feedback on it is probably not sufficient.
Have you found that students are mostly honest in taking I mean, because there might be somebody that thinks, if I put strongly disagree, everyone in the class is going to know it's me.
Well, it's interesting.
You know what I mean, though? Like,
Yeah.
have you come across that in your classes?
I have found students are very willing to present their opinion as long as you don't out them. Like, even if I know, like, there are ways I can go in and check. It's hard while you're going through to check on individual students, but it is possible. And as long as I don't out individual students and I respect their privacy and their participation, I haven't had that problem. You know, maybe I will, or maybe I'm just not aware of it. But to this point, I've seen students willing to give feedback and in fact appreciate the fact that you're saying, wow, I need more information about this, or I need more understanding about this. It's part of the relationality, I think, of the classroom environment.
Scott, can I just jump in too and just say, like, if you've got the clickers connected with a name, there's a participant monitor up there that actually you can't see it, of course, but on your screen you can see. If you choose to bring it up, you can see who the 3 or 4 that might have answered strongly disagree. Tuck it away in your mind and try to talk to them after class afterwards. But if you want to, you can have that instant feedback of who said anonymously, at least to the rest of the class, but they're telling you if you want to find out who answered those questions that way. So.
Yeah, and I've had students that, this is more personal, and maybe this helps because I'm being vulnerable, maybe this helps with that process. But I also ask for feedback. I at the end of my lectures, and I'll go, so how did I do today? You give me a grade on what I'm doing, and what I find is they're honest. Sometimes when I wish they wouldn't be. I wish they'd be a little kinder and less specific, but they do answer the question. So sometimes I'll ask something along the lines of, what is this? Was this clear and understandable? Or have them comment on, am I ready to attempt the homework? Questions like that that will get at their ability to take on the material. And this gives you a couple of opportunities. One, it allows you to plan your next class period before you're even at your first. Because you can go, oh, wow, I missed it on this one. We better revisit all this next class. Two, it allows you to go back and check on students if you know that they've been struggling with quiz material. Are they the ones that are struggling? Is it your ones that are doing well on quizzes that are then giving you the feedback you missed it? Because if it's the really good ones, then I have to go, ooh, I did something that wasn't very clear in this lecture. If it's, on the other hand, the ones that have been struggling all along, gives you a chance to reach out and say, hey, how can I make contact with you? So it's a tool for further relationship.
And you
in
can
the
also
classroom.
discover learning styles too with that and say, you know, I would have preferred the lecture had more discussion or something like that, and then you can sort of see, okay, these are really highly interpersonal learners, and maybe I need to include more, you know, they might feel more confident. If, you know, I think that would be a really great way to determine learning style as well.
Yeah, and I think even just effectiveness of the pedagogical techniques you're using. So I've gotten feedback from students from time to time, hey, you spend a lot of time doing it yourself, but we're not sure how to do it when we get there.
Right.
Or the complexity of your examples is just way too low given the homework you're expecting out of us. So these are an ongoing chance to sort of assess yourself and build your own teaching skills. Pass off to Dr. Hoekman.
Thank you. One thing I'll mention before going to my slide so I want to mostly talk about how I used this last fall for fostering discussion. But this spring, we're teaching origins, and there's a lot of discussion in that class, but there's also some components where I'm just trying to cover some material from the book so that we all understand it. And you can use clickers even in the case of a lecture that you didn't design this particular class period around clickers. I have that functionality in mind when I taught this course last year, but now I'm going to be looking back at some lectures that I did last year, and I'll just be inserting some questions, right? You can open a PowerPoint, maybe one that you used last year, and insert questions. So maybe every 3 to 5 slides, I'll put a question in, and I could take this approach and say, do you feel like you understand concept X, yes or no, or put it on a scale, or I might just have a question that might appear on a quiz or a test in the future that will assess whether they understand concept X, whether they think they understand it or not. I'll ask a question that will answer that question for me, and so it can be very real-time feedback that way too, to say, the last 3 slides I just talked about, does the class in general understand what I just told them? Or do I need to say it again? Do I need to back up? Do I need to use a different example? So it's just a really quick kind of get the pulse of their understanding. So that's something I want to do for this origins class we're doing this semester. But I want to use an example from a class that I did last semester, a tool for generating discussion. So sometimes there's one right answer with this physics example, right? It definitely generated discussion. It got us thinking about it. But there was one right answer that we were hoping to get to eventually. For this learning community, environmental sustainability and resilience, we were often just trying to discuss. I was trying to kind of get their opinion on things. We were trying to be informed about different perspectives and come to just a better understanding without having the right answer. And so one thing that we talked quite a bit about was the role of government, right? Every single concept we talked about, from pollution and our agricultural system and climate change, and every single topic we would talk about the role of government, right? How do we collectively want to make rules about behavior? Do we want to have it be kind of driven by the market? Do we want to have really strict rules? Do we want to, let's look at different models? And so we would be thinking about this all the time. So this is just one example where we were thinking about, I forget which industry we were talking about even in this case, but anyway, there's a range of opinions. Should government impose strict regulations against the will of an industry? From no to yes, if the majority of the people support it, or yes, if elected representatives think it's the right thing to do, or yes, if your government regulators, right, these public employees with maybe some specialized knowledge that elected representatives might not have, or the people might not have, or just always yes. Right, and so a group of 30 people, we can just quick take a poll and see where you're at. And with this particular case, the goal really, well, first of all, the first goal is kind of a self-realization of where do I fall in kind of the range of opinions on this matter. And that is a good reflection when you're thinking about this question in other contexts, right? Am I generally of the opinion that we ought to have more regulation or less? Because then the specifics of the case are going to push you in one direction or another often. But in this particular case, now I know in general where we're at. And now what I want for the students is to understand these different points of view, right? What's the perspective of the people who say no versus the perspective of those who say yes? Do they have reasons that I haven't considered for holding those positions? So in this case, the follow-up was, I want you to go and talk with 3 other people, and they have to be people who chose different letters than you did, and just really briefly give them your reasoning in the particular case we were talking about for why you chose what you did. And then we would re-poll, and there's usually, you have to kind of be able to roll with it depending how things go, but there's usually quite a bit of change. Usually there's kind of, it might be driven by personality in some cases, some people who are just more kind of forceful or really convinced of their position, but other times I think it's just that there are fresh perspectives that are brought to bear that most of the people in the room just didn't realize that there was this perspective out there, and so it could really change your opinion. So I wanted to try a few. And I just want to say before we do this would work better in a larger group. But really I just want to try a few sort of as an example of questions where there's no right answer, and questions where if I were to pose it, say, ask it directly to you, and then you, and then you might feel uncomfortable. You might not want to say, I support this position or that position, but in a group of 30 people, you might be fine just clicking your answer down anonymously. I should say, like in this situation, if this was a sensitive topic, I would not call on whoever clicked no and say, explain yourself, right? I'm not going to put them on the spot, but I might say, okay, 20% of you said yes without restriction. Would one of you be willing to just speak up on behalf of that position and maybe explain your reasoning a little bit for the class? And often students are willing to do that, especially if you do it in kind of a non-threatening way where they're not feeling defensive, but they're just kind of going to give their reasoning. So who knows how these will go? Let's try them. This is an easy warm-up just to make sure the clickers are working. So just pick one of these.
Might have to hit
Uh-oh, I gotta say open up. Yeah, you're right. Right here, right?
Yeah.
I guess we've already tested the clickers, so right. Let's just quickly make sure the one you got is working. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Yep, there they are. We've dealt with that example. Here's another one. If I call on you individually, you might not want to say, I feel the burn. But in this case, maybe you'd be more comfortable just You know, we're not going to know who you are, and especially if it was a group of 50 people, we really wouldn't know who you are. The polling is open. I have 6. I won't dwell on the response here. So anyway, what if you just glance at that distribution? Right. We cannot have scripted that. My follow-up question to this would be very different if we had, 50% Cruz and 50% Rubio. Right? My follow-up question would be, do we have a representative from the Rubio camp versus a representative from the Cruz camp who can kind of tell me why you favor this candidate? You might also bring me, maybe I would reflect and look here and say, boy, maybe I really ought to have included the other candidates. I just chose the top finishers in Iowa, perhaps. So sometimes students, you'll put up some responses and then they'll say back to you, hey, I don't want to pick any of these. I strongly support. What's the governor of Ohio? This other guy, Kasich. Yeah. So I'd really like him to be on this list. So sometimes just the way that you frame the question and the particular, the way that you put them in these categories can elicit some responses and generate some discussion. Here's another question: healthcare system. I have to open it. Sorry. That was quick. All right. I would not have guessed that.
Obviously, agree on what we don't.
So that's really enlightening, right? I mean, that would totally change the way you follow it up in terms of, we don't need to talk about the pros and cons of armature. We could just contrast the extremes. Or maybe people would say, given these options, I have to pick this, but here's what I really would want to do. So
yeah, it seems like other would be helpful on these. I mean, you could sort of say, okay, those of you who said other, does anybody want to throw out what your other is?
That's right. Yeah, and there are 10 different options, so you can you can list a whole bunch of them. And again, that works better the more people you have when you're. Yes. All right. I have just one. This will be a quick one. Polling is open. So here's another quick one. One people have been talking about recently.
Okay, well you can't answer that question yes or no.
So there you go. You have to answer yes or no in this case. Maybe I should have had another.
How do you? Because if I say yes, I'm not saying whether I. You see what I'm saying?
It's the way it's worded.
It's the way it's worded. There's no yes or no answer.
Should.
Or.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry,
I didn't think very long about this. I just said, well, let's do quick controversial questions that don't have a right or wrong answer.
Question, should it?
Yeah.
Okay,
you skip the or part.
Skip the. Okay.
Versus. I guess I was thinking versus going beyond it. Yeah.
Right.
You are amusing the online attendees with these questions. You're getting a kick out of them.
Okay. Yeah, so there you go. All right, so all of that is just to say, usually the follow-up is then, can you explain your answer? Can you defend it? And most importantly, have you considered the other arguments, right? Can you quickly be swayed by just a brief exchange with those around you, or do you feel strongly? Because that's one thing that's often missing from these multiple choice, right? I ask you what candidate do you favor, and that doesn't. There's no difference between I'm kind of on the fence, but I don't like anybody, so I'll just randomly pick one versus I've had this person's poster on my wall for years, and I live and breathe by this name, and so. That exchange afterward can give people a chance to really stand up and advocate for some position.
Have you tried giving the students the questions ahead of time, saying, these are some questions that we're going to talk about in class, so that they do come sort of already having thought about it, or even maybe having done some research on it, so then when you do the poll, it feels like that might be able to give you, especially on something that is new material or something that requires more thinking about,
Mhm.
that maybe they could say, well, when I saw that question, I actually went and read blah, 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 or whatever. Seems like maybe you could prime it a little bit, especially with these that are a little bit, that are not yes or no, right or wrong questions.
That's a great idea. I never gave them the questions ahead of time for this past semester, but
I just wonder, I mean, not every time, but maybe just a few of the more in-depth ones might add some robustness to the discussion.
It'd be pretty easy to email them the night ahead of time too,
Right.
instead of having a plan all up front. Just, you know, we're gonna cover it, so think about the.
if you had it ready the night before, which on occasion it might be yeah, I agree that would be.
I can relate to
I
that.
have some students that are too lazy to do the prep.
Well, that's fine, but I'm thinking, you know, especially in upper division classes that tend to be a little bit more, you know, the students tend to be more engaged, not always.
No,
I'm not thinking
general
ISA.
education classes, yeah. I'm just happy with it though.
Yeah.
I'm thinking even as they're doing their reading, like for the chapter,
Right,
these are some questions we'll discuss in class you can be thinking about.
right, yeah.
Well, I really want to respect your time. Just one more quote here, and then we'll take one final poll. But Scott's got a great point here, is that this is just a means to an end, clickers are. They're not the end in and of themselves. And so there are other ways to elicit student feedback, and with online applications, you mentioned poll everywhere. I won't get out. You can just type in poll everywhere, and you can set up your own account and use that as much as you want. You might think about using it like for pre and post polling at the beginning or end of a module, you know, like a 6-week module if you're teaching an online class. And then maybe they have to fill out a poll right before they enter into a discussion forum, or, you know, the polling closes at midnight, you know, on Friday night, and then you have to finish your discussion forum on Sunday or something like that. But you've posted the results, so at least they have a better idea of what they're thinking as a whole. So those are just a couple of things we thought about. Really, it's not limited to the clicker. It can be a variety of ways, including like poll everywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and reset this, and we want your response. I guess David and Scott and I actually won't click on this one. We're kind of curious to see how you'd respond after our presentation today, if clickers might be something that you're interested in. So, all right, I'll go ahead and close the poll then. And very good. So that makes us happy. Okay. And good answer. All right. But any of us would be really very, very happy to help you out. I think, speaking personally as dean, really want to make sure that we facilitate a way. Like I bought Scott's response where, so, you know, I think that we can find funding when we need to. Yes, there must be an online question.
Yes. Lisa asks, do you know how many other professors on campus are using the clickers?
Well, that's a good question. You know, when we cleaned out the third floor of the biology, I found a whole set of clickers there that was probably about 7, 8, 9 years old technology. They were big clickers, and at that point, that long ago, it was really cumbersome technology. But now it's something, you know, when I was using this in astronomy, they just put them in their book bag.
Yeah.
They didn't use them until they came back in class again, and I lost just one by distributing to the students. So I think we're the only 3 at this point, but a number of people have expressed interest in using them. So
Have you thought about using these for faculty meetings, get a real survey that we can all take to and be seen?
Ooh,
That way there'd be no misrepresentation of what faculty think if you ask them on the spot, and even told them ahead of time, here's the question we're going to ask, we're going to poll you and find out, then there'd be no hiding from what faculty actually think. I think you'd be very.
That is, well, I was actually thinking even like at the end of a seminar, like for an evaluation instantly right there, because I have such a hard time getting students to actually evaluate
Yeah.
seminars, but just to do a quick 5-question thing at the end of a seminar, and then you've got all the data, and the government's happy because you've got your percentages.
everything you can download into Excel and so
Right.
forth, it's right there. There's
Yeah.
no paper, and you have to feed through Scantron and everything
Yeah.
like that. It's very fast and efficient. So
Yeah, it saves a lot of handling time with the data.
I want to respect your time. It's a little bit past 2, so if there are any other questions, we'd love to answer them. Otherwise, we'll just say thank you very much. But yes, Ms.
Real quick, have you heard of Kahoot, or have you used it?
No, I haven't personally.
Okay. It allows people to give answers from any device,
And so if maybe if they couldn't afford the clickers or something like that, and it would show a leaderboard just similar to this, and it would poll it on your presentation screen
Very good.
as well. So
Poll everywhere does that as well. You can text, or if your laptop open, but again, I don't really have laptops open or phones out in my classroom.
Sure.
Yeah,
It just depends.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. So what was it called? How do you spell it?
Kahoot.
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 Very good.
Misty, I have a question for you. Would this be something that the ORC would be, like maybe buy a set and then we could do checkout like we do with the iPads?
Yeah.
Because it's not something I would necessarily use every day in class, but maybe like at the end of each module, or like we do like a whole thing on Excel. And then I could get some feedback from them on, okay, how confident do you feel about your Excel knowledge? Like, I would love to kind of assess each section as we finish it, but, I mean, I'm teaching a gen ed class, like, it's not like I'm gonna use this every single day in class, but I wouldn't mind checking it out.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll propose it to the rest of the team.
Okay.
See what they think.
Michael.
Excess time that it takes for you to set up, to create the questions and the responses and evaluate, do you find that worth the extra time it takes you to do all of that?
Speaking personally for me, the amount of time it takes to grade reading quizzes and review those is about equivalent to the amount of time it takes to set up the first time. But then for classes that you're running multiple semesters, you've already got it set up.
Already have that space, that sort of.
Yeah, so it's a wash on the first semester, I'd say.
As far as evaluation and grading, do you find a way to use this to evaluate and give them a participation grade, let's say, instead of a quiz grade?
Yeah, so the way I've done the quizzes this semester, I give them 2 points. If you look in the right side there, you can give point values.
Okay.
And so I give them 2 points for a correct and 1 point for an incorrect. That way they're getting credit for being there and having their brains sort of turned on to know to press a button at the right time, which is a minimal level, but that's okay.
I mean, a lot of time, my small assignments like that are just, did you do it or not do it?
Right.
Give you, it's 10 points. Did you show up? Did you fill it all out? Did you turn it in correctly? It's 10 points.
Yeah, and so there's certainly evidence that suggests they are willing to participate regardless, and if it's only a little bit of a credit, it's nice to continue that process through the semester, but it also does give you some feedback in the process.
I found that it takes a little bit of work, but it's a one-time deal.
Right.
And then in the middle of class, I mean, it can go pretty smoothly, but sometimes it's been like, okay, it's like driving your car and you're eating at the same time and talking on your cell phone. A little bit. It takes a little bit of mental capacity to just stay kind of engaged with what you're supposed to do, like starting the poll or closing the poll. So there's a little bit of added element in terms of your mental space. But
Learning curve for you as well.
What's that?
I said learning curve for you as well.
It has been. And I'm a big formatter on PowerPoint. It doesn't look like it out here, but I spend a lot of time kind of moving things around, and that takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
If you keep it nice and simple like this, it doesn't take hardly any time. It's generated that bar chart for you. You just type in your answers. You put in the question. So it depends on how much perfection you're looking for in terms of look.
Well, if you're already transitioning quizzes to the clicker, it's pretty simple then. You've already got it there. You just